Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, we're glad to have you back. If you're new to the channel, thanks for joining us. Salty Ginger Talk is a podcast for people that want to learn something new or make themselves a little bit better every day. So, in today's episode, we are turning to the world of physics to help us manage our mindset. What I mean by that is there are physical laws that apply to nature. And if we apply those same physical laws to the way we think about the world, it can help us perform at the level we want to perform at or focus on the things we want to focus on. At least from our perspective, it works that way. We talk a lot on this channel about being fact based, logical, controlling our emotions, and making good decisions. So, we turn to the world of physics to help us understand momentum, right? We talk about it in terms of sports a lot. A team that's scored a bunch of points or is making a comeback has momentum. A team that's opening up a big lead in their division has momentum. So, what does momentum actually mean? For the definition of momentum and the formula to calculate momentum, we turn to the world of physics. So, physics is the branch of science concerned with the nature and properties of matter and energy. So, how does that help us when we think about it in terms of controlling our mindset and applying a good mindset to how we live our everyday life? Well, let's just look at the formula for momentum. And that formula is mass times velocity. This means that the momentum of a physical object is equal to how big or small the object is multiplied by the velocity the object is moving. So think about that from a physical world perspective. A train, if it hits you at 20 miles an hour, is going to be just as problematic as a bullet that hits you at 2,000 feet per second, right? The bullet's small, but it's moving very fast, can cause a lot of damage. The train is big and it's moving very slow, but it can cause a lot of damage. So there's two parts to the equation for momentum. One is mass, the other is velocity. The other thing that's important to understand about velocity is it's what's called a vector quantity. So speed doesn't necessarily talk about direction. A vector is just a direction. So if we're talking about the speed of something, it might be going really fast or it might be going really slow, but we don't know the direction that it's going. And for momentum, especially when we apply it to our own personal lives and how we think about the world, it's important to think about the direction in which we're moving. So it's good in the momentum equation that velocity is the variable and not speed. Because if it was just speed, we could be going really, really fast down the wrong path. Now, it might actually be good if you are going down the wrong path to go as fast as you can, because maybe it allows you to determine quicker that you're actually on the wrong path and you can turn around and or choose a different path. But our argument would be if we're deliberate about our thought process and we take decisive action, we should be able to figure out fairly quickly if what we're doing is taking us in the right direction or the wrong direction. But let's take this out of the physics world or the physical world and apply it to some everyday scenarios that we can wrap our minds around to help us with our mindset. So if we take the equation and apply it to real life, momentum stays the same. We want to achieve significant progress. We're going to call significant progress momentum. If that's our goal, we need to combine a strong commitment. And in the real world, we're going to call the strong commitment our mass. How bad do we want it? How committed to it are we? One of my favorite ways to describe that, I coached a lot of stuff when my kids were younger, and I was younger too, but there was it's kind of a joke, but there's two guys ice fishing, and one of them, they're on the same lake, they're about 100 feet apart. One of them has not had a nibble all day, and the other one is pulling fish out regularly. Like he is just yanking fish out of this lake left and right. And at some point, the guy that's not catching any fish goes over to the guy that is catching fish and says, "Hey, I'm not having any luck. You're doing a great job. You got to tell me what the secret is." And the guy that's catching all the fish says, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa." And the guy that was asking the question says, "Well, I'm sorry, I didn't understand you." And the guy that's responding says, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa." And the guy says one more time, "I'm sorry, I just didn't get that." So the guy that's catching all the fish sticks his hand up to his mouth, spits a mouthful of worms out into his hand, and says, "You got to keep the worms warm." And he pops the worms back in his mouth and goes back to fishing. So that's the question as it relates to the strong commitment or the mass. How much mass, how strong of a commitment are you willing to put towards achieving a goal? How important is that goal for you? Whether it's financial, whether it's personal, whether it's health, doesn't matter what it is. How committed are you willing to be to that goal? Because if you want to build momentum, there's two variables to build momentum. One of them is mass, or the strong commitment that goes with it. And the other is the focused action or actions you're willing to take and how fast you're willing to take them. And that's the velocity in the real world. So to boil it down to brass tacks, the more dedicated you are and the faster you act, the greater your overall progress or momentum is going to be towards whatever goal it is you're trying to achieve. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with taking small steps and building up towards a goal. So I'm not trying to say that you should just burn your life down to try to accomplish any particular goal. It's up to you how you do that. I would argue, as a person who's done that at different points in my life, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's worth it on the other end, even if you achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve. But you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to commit to this goal? How much mass am I willing to put towards it? And then the second question you have to ask yourself is, what actions am I willing to take? How fast am I willing to take them? And how committed am I to continue to take those actions? Because that's the velocity. So mass times velocity equals momentum, which is the achievement of the goal that you're trying to achieve. So how willing are you to do what you say you're willing to do? If you're not that willing, maybe it's not the right goal. Maybe it is the right goal, and you need to be at peace with the fact it's going to take you a while to get to where you want to be. And I would argue that anything worth having in life is worth working towards. And there really are no overnight successes. Anywhere you see an overnight success, there's probably been someone that's been grinding in the background for years to get to the point that they got to in order to achieve that success. And I can't really think of any exceptions to that rule. Now, sometimes people start really early in life. Let's take professional athletes, for example. You look at whatever, the NFL draft or the World Series or whatever, pick some major sporting event or achievement, and you see a 21, 22, 23-year-old kid that has achieved success at the highest level. That's a person that has most likely been involved in that sport from the time they could walk. And you don't see all the times they spent in the backseat of a car driving to a tournament or driving to a coach or driving to a practice. You don't see the 5 o'clock alarm that they wake up to get to where they need to be on time. And that's happened over years, if not decades of time. So it might seem like they burst onto the pro scene and they're wildly successful. There's a kid that's the quarterback for the Washington Generals, or Washington, what are they, the Commanders? Washington Commanders now. It's funny, my oldest son always says, I don't know why they didn't name them the Washington Sentinels, like the movie, what was the movie? The Keanu Reeves movie, The Replacements. He was like, they already had a great name. They should have used it. The Commanders isn't such a great name. But they drafted a quarterback. The kid started this year. They were a terrible team last year. They're 7-2 as of right now, as of this weekend. And that's a kid that looks like an overnight success. He's not an overnight success. That kid's been grinding at football for decades. But he achieved success at the highest level because he went into a good situation. He's worked his ass off to put himself in a place where he can be successful there. So he didn't have overnight success, but he's built up a lot of momentum. He's built up a critical mass, and he's built up a good velocity, meaning fast action, moving positively towards the goals that he's trying to achieve. So super important, super helpful. So from a real world perspective, like maybe you're not going to be in the NFL. I'm not going to be in the NFL either, so that's okay. But if we're applying this to real world scenarios, let's go through a couple of real world scenarios and talk about what the mass and the velocity would be to achieve the momentum or the goal that you're trying to achieve. If you want a promotion, the mass to help you build a big mass towards that promotion could be actively seeking new responsibilities and learning new skills. How often do you volunteer for additional stuff? How often do you volunteer to take on projects? How often do you volunteer to go through training on machinery at your work? Let's say you're in the trades and you need to learn how a drill press works, or you need to learn how a fabrication machine works. That's up to you to take those steps. That's the mass behind that goal that you've set for yourself. Now, the velocity could be consistently delivering high quality work, quickly. So you build up this mass through the skills and volunteering and taking on additional responsibilities while continuing to do a really good job at what you do right now and delivering high quality work in a short time. That's mass times velocity. That's going to build you momentum towards that goal. Another scenario, let's take it to the fitness world. And let's say to achieve better fitness, the mass could be a strict diet plan and commitment to exercise. I'm going to cut out processed foods, and I'm going to get on a regimented exercise program that I stick to religiously. And velocity could be pushing yourself to do more repetitions or running faster or lifting more weights. Let's assume weightlifting's involved in your exercise routine, as it should be, during your workouts. That's the velocity. So the mass is the nutrition plan and the exercise commitment and plan. And the velocity is pushing yourself to do as good as you can in those activities when you're doing them. Are you grinding as hard as you can? That's the mass and the velocity. The faster you want to achieve your goal, the higher or larger you need to make those two inputs, the mass and the velocity. So we like to apply logic and reason to things to try to ensure that we're working on the right stuff and that we're headed the right direction to achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve. So when we look at the world of physics, we think there's real takeaways from there that could be applied to the real world. I was a good hitter when I played baseball, and I used to tell I didn't use a real big bat. And so people would say, well, your bat's kind of small. And I would say, well, but I get it through the zone quick. So I want bat speed. A smaller bat allows me to get better bat speed. So the bat is the mass. The bat speed is the velocity. Because guys throw the ball hard, because I need to be able to move the bat to a different area. If it's a slider, if it's a curveball, if I recognize that I need to change the angle of my swing when the pitch is on its way and I've committed to swinging it, I like a smaller bat because I could control the bat speed and apply more velocity to the pitches I was trying to hit. So that was why I did what I did. And that was the way I explained it to people is momentum equals mass times velocity. And so I have better control over the velocity than I do the mass. That was why I used a smaller bat. But again, these same principles absolutely apply to your real world life. And they can apply to personal situations. They can apply to professional situations. They can apply to any situation where you can identify what are the things that I need to do, the mass, to achieve the goal, and then what is the actions that I can take and how quickly can I take those actions to move myself towards that goal. That's the velocity. So that's how we argue you should think about applying this formula to your everyday life to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. So that's our story. That's our episode for today, guys. Hope you found the episode interesting. We like putting it together. It's something we've thought about a lot and wanted to share it with you guys. So we hope you find it useful. So every day, James puts our website up here, saltygingertalk.com. Don't forget to head over there. You can find all of our podcast episodes on our website. You've got links to all of our social media on our website. We also publish a newsletter every weekday that you can subscribe to on our website. And also don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. We really appreciate the support, and it's super helpful for us. So thanks a lot, guys. Everybody have a great week. Appreciate you coming and checking out the channel. Hope you found today's episode useful. Everybody have a great week. We will see you next time.